That when you first start out, let me just share with you the two things that I do myself, that I did myself with my own store, that I do with my clients, and then what I do for myself personally. First of all, you have to look at the big picture of everything once a month. You have to make that appointment with yourself, and you've got to stick to it. Once a month, you've got to make sure you're looking at the big picture. You have to. You know, and then I can tell you that every single week, I tell my clients to look at their sales plan to see how things are how their sales are going compared to where they should be. And I look at my own cash flow and my own sales every single week.
Right. My challenge, of course, is that, you know, and we've chatted before, is that I have sort of two very different elements of my business.
Right.
So I have an inventory component, but then when we do special event invitations, you know, I'm not sitting on that inventory. It's a totally different scenario.
Yes,
and
right.
so, you know, it's trying to figure out how to wear two different brains and you know, how to spend the right amount of time.
But the thing is that you just have to make a decision on how you're going to do it. You have to make a decision on what's the best way to handle it, and then make a commitment to yourself to handle it that way. What happens to all of us is that tyranny of the urgence is what ends up taking care of things. We end up putting out fires rather than working on those big rocks. We have a profit club that we just started, and it's a big group coaching program, and we just spoke about this yesterday on our group call, and I was saying to them how, you know, it's that whole example of how if you take a cup, if you have a cup and you have rocks and you have rice and you have water, if you're going to fill that cup up, you can put rice and water in, and then there's no room for the rocks, right? Whereas if you want to fit those big rocks in, the big rocks have to go in first, and then you put the rice in, and then you put the water in. But there's always room for the rice and the water, but those big rocks have to go in first. Those big rocks represent where it is you want to go with your company. You have to decide, Cindy, how much of your company, so like what does the special events side of your company need, and what does the store side of your company need? You have to look at those big rocks, decide what you need, and put those in first, and everything else will fall into place. But what ends up happening is that the phone rings and something urgent happens and you can't sleep. I mean, you know, it happens to everyone in this room. We've all been in that situation, haven't we? And so then the next morning, instead of doing what you think you should do, you know, you end up taking care of putting out fires instead of putting those big rocks in first. It's like not checking your email first thing. It is so hard not to check your email first thing in the morning. I can tell you that's one of the biggest productivity tips that I've ever learned, because what it was said to me is that, you know, your email is actually someone else's to-do list for you. It is not your to-do list. It is someone else's to-do list for you. You know. So what were we going to say?
Not a question, but a comment. I was in retail for 10 years at 1154 Lowe's, a custom handbag retailer and manufacturer. And what I thought was interesting is, you know, no one needs a cloth handbag. They want it. So when the economy went down, we kept trying to create more categories. Like, okay, we're going to go after sororities, or maybe we'll do leather.